You ready, Chris?
You ready, Ben?
Let's get it.
Man, let's get it, man. Welcome to the Follow Then Lead podcast.
We have our guest here, West Cineus of the Triple Threat NBA podcast.
Triple Threat NBA podcast, yes.
Yeah, man. Welcome to the show, bro.
Thanks for having me, bro. I've been watching a lot of the snippets that you've been doing so far. Love it. It's just the vibe of it, the feel of it feels really cool. So I'm anticipating what's about to occur.
Yeah. And it's funny because the snippets don't really give you anything of the show. At least they haven't.
It doesn't, but I think just some of the people that you have had and just the way they've responded to some of the questions that you provided in the snippets, it just feels like a show with depth, and you know what I mean. So you get that out of it, even though you don't know what the whole thing is about. The preview's enough to be like, okay, like this is getting my attention. You know what I mean? So yeah,
that's good to hear.
Yeah, so kudos to you, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That's good to hear. I haven't gotten feedback like that yet.
Hey.
All right, so
if it was trash, I would tell you too. So.
I appreciate it.
That would happen.
I'm sure I would hear it from you, everyone. It's like, yeah, what are you doing? But yeah, so Wes, can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yep. So I essentially have I feel like I'm a jack of all trades, bro. Like I feel like I do a little bit of everything, right? So born in Brooklyn, raised in Boston, spent some time in Florida, moved back to the Northeast. At times when I do get angry, I guess I could have a little Southern twang. Be from the Florida, but the reason why I say I feel like I'm a jack of all trades is because I'm into real estate.
Okay.
I'm into basketball. I have the podcast. I'm obsessed with just like rooting, being a cheerleader for my kids. Nothing too crazy out of the ordinary, but I like to try out a bunch of different things and not be confined in just one space, right? So if it looks like something that's kind of cool, I want to kind of dibble-dabble in it and like, okay, I did it. I think I'm good. I'll move on to the next thing depending on how crazy it is, right?
Bitcoin?
Right, exactly. So this depending on the risk, right? So and that's another thing I've realized about myself too. I'm not, for someone that likes to pursue or that perceives themselves as a jack of all trades, I'm not too risk averse. Like I like to be a bit conservative with a lot of the things that I do and how I move. Okay. So yeah. I mean, I the general question of like tell us a little bit about yourself. It's just too broad for me.
Okay. So we've probably known each other for some years, but never really knew each other.
Right.
Known of each other, been around, same, close circles.
Yep.
And how long have you been in Boston?
So, since moving back to Boston since high school, so I want to say like probably like the past 20 years or so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Probably like past 20 years or so. 21, 22 years, yeah.
All right. And then you grew up in Brooklyn.
No. So I was born in Brooklyn.
Born in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
okay.
That's what I was
raised.
Florida. Grew up in Boston, moved to Florida in like around elementary, middle school, then moved back to Boston in high school, college, and you know what I mean. So Jay and I, we reconnected in college.
All right.
You know what I mean? So this is someone that I actually went to elementary school with for a little bit.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So back and forth. But for the most part, I grew up. I'm a Mattapan kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
you bringing up Brooklyn don't matter.
Nah, bro. Like, So it matters in the fact that I share the same birthplace as Biggie and Jay. You know what I mean? So that will always be you ask anybody that was born in Brooklyn and moved anywhere else.
They from Brooklyn forever.
That's a thing, bro. You know what I mean? Like the fact that you share the same birthplace as Biggie, come on, man. I'm lit forever.
That's it.
It doesn't matter what happens in life. I'm lit forever.
Yeah. I remember one time we went to Brooklyn. Was it Brooklyn? Yeah, it was Brooklyn. We went to Brooklyn some years ago with Jay.
Right.
And my ex-girlfriend was up there, so we was reconnecting, spending the weekend together. And we just so happened to, I forget the part of town we went, and we were looking to get something to eat. Mm-hmm. And this is like a New York story. Anybody has a New York story, this is how it is. I mean, we go down to this area, I forget where it is, not far from like the bridge to cross over to like into Manhattan, I think. Mm-hmm. And we're looking for food, and we're just walking around, and we end up like seeing these benches outside in like front of a restaurant. And so we're like, oh, what's this? So we walk up. There's a DJ in the window because they had the windows open. We're like, oh, what's this? They're like, oh yeah, like $10. You can get a plate. They had some food on the side, and you can sit down and chill. It's a block party. Right. This was like the beginning of it, so nobody was really there. We're like, all right, cool. A couple hours later, the whole street's packed. It's what is it? Sweet Chicks, or it's Nas's restaurant, and I didn't know it at the time.
It's not. Why do I want to say it's Cheeks? You said Chicks?
That's Boss. That's the one in Boston. Oh, yeah. It's something. So anyway, Nas's restaurant in Brooklyn. Right. He ends up coming. He's on top of the restaurant. So Nas has a restaurant
in BK?
Yeah.
And not in Queens?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we weren't in Queens. We were in Brooklyn for sure. Okay. And he's on the top. He was on the roof throwing like balloons off. People was going crazy. They're passing out water guns. This was when I first heard what's his name? He
was there?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
This was when I first heard the rapper, what's his name? He's with Rihanna now.
Oh, ASAP. Rocky?
No, the other one starts with a J, I think.
With Rihanna?
No, he's not with Rihanna. ASAP's with Rihanna.
Yeah.
Anyway, this was the first time I heard this rapper.
Yeah.
And he was dope. I was like, yo, who is he? And I think he was maybe early on in his career. Dope. And what's the white DJ that was like from Boston?
Clinton Sparks.
Clint Sparks was there.
Yep.
It was like the twin DJs. There's two females in New York.
Yep.
They were there. They were DJing.
Oh, so bro, it was crazy.
It was crazy. It was like one of the best days I've had. Just remembering New York, like how just that experience.
Summertime?
It was, yep.
Yeah, so I feel like summertime in BK, and it has to be like that in Chicago. Chicago is one of those places I want to visit too in the summertime, right? It's probably crazy for me to say that because of a lot of the craziness that's been going on there, but it's always strike me as one of those places where summertime is probably just like a lot going on or whatever. And that's what I always appreciate about BK specifically, right? I don't know about New York as a whole, but BK specifically is that it's always one of those places, especially in summertime, there's always something going on.
And you can just accidentally run into it.
Just like you guys did. That's crazy.
Accidentally, and it was a dope day, just a great day.
Amazing and free.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what I like. Free fun. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's dope.
So yeah, so to get back to you, in your life experience, so like what was your childhood like going from, I have a similar experience just kind of moving around as a kid. So moving from Florida to Boston or Boston to Florida back here.
Right.
Yeah, what was your childhood like?
So it was actually kind of crazy, man, because when we left Boston and moved to Florida, if you just understand the wage difference between what you get paid in the Northeast versus the South, my parents could not really afford to work down there and own two homes. Like, so we had a condo out in Boston and we left because of the violence. That's really why we left Boston. The final straw was like there was a shootout, like we were having like a movie night or something like that in the living room, and I kid you not, like right in front of our window, like right where our car was parked, there was just a bang out right there. Right. Right. So like, yeah. And my parents was like, nah, we can't do, they're raising two boys. It's just like, nah, we out. So we ended up moving to Florida, but I ended up in a position where, because I was the oldest, so I'll say I was probably about 7th grade. I'm the oldest of 4. So because of the wage difference, my parents actually ended up staying up north for a little bit and working. And I was actually home raising my younger siblings. I was actually with them.
Yeah.
In this brand new house, making sure that, you know, they ate, they showered, they were doing homework, all that stuff.
Wow.
And this is in 7th grade, bro.
Yeah. Was
You
that
know what I
13,
mean?
14, 13?
Yeah, you're pretty much like
12.
about 12. Yeah, 12, 13. So once in a while, what would happen is, like, I think about maybe 2 to 3 times a week, a friend of theirs would come by with some cooked food, or, you know, make sure that we didn't burn the house down, we didn't do anything crazy. But for the most part, it was me and my younger siblings, you know what I mean, like, holding it down. So I don't know what was going through my parents' head. Like, at the time, it felt like it didn't seem like a crazy thought to me, because I was like, yeah, I'll take care of it, you know what I mean? Like, when I was up in Boston, I was able to you know, I would stay home with them when they be off at work. This is just them at work for for a couple of days, you know what I mean, at a time.
Right.
So it was, I think the only scary thing at that time is, like, you know, when the teachers is like, yo, you know, we need to talk to, you keep picking up, where's your mom, whatever, oh, she's at work, you know what I mean? So I keep giving them a runaround, but anytime she actually needed to be somewhere in person, it was just a quick call and she was on a flight down.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I don't know that I would be able to do that with any of my children now.
It's a little different
like,
nowadays,
it's crazy, right? So I feel like, especially for, like, our generation, like, we were able to kind of, I feel like everything is really sensitive now, and for good reason, right? Because I just said I could not see myself doing that. If my kids, like, when my kids get to that age, like, I can't see myself leaving and then just living in a completely different state at the time. You know what I mean?
It's
Like,
a lot of trust.
you know what I mean? In a 7th grader, you know what I mean? Yeah, like, the fact that, yeah, you really gonna make sure these kids do their homework and bathe and all of that. You know what I mean? So it's like, at that age, most kids don't want to shower. Most kids don't want to, let alone making sure other people are doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that was a pretty interesting experience, because it ultimately shaped who I would later become, right? In terms of just not someone who ever became a follower. It immediately put me in a position where I was never going to be a person that would easily be peer pressured into doing anything. And if you speak to anybody that has known me since we were younger to now, they would tell you, like, you know, I'm the same dude that I could be around a certain type of element, but I don't necessarily ever feel the need that I need to participate in order to feel cool or whatever. And within that made me feel cool.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
So you were accepted for you.
Yeah, exactly. And what's crazy is those same cats would tell me that too. They'd be like, yo, I respect the fact that we've been trying to get you to do this, but you just on your own thing, but you don't stop chilling with us even though you're on your own thing.
Yeah.
That doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, we could be in the same room, we could rock out, you could still be my mans, but what you do should never dictate how I move. You know what I mean? Like, we should be able to respect the fact that in our differences, we care about each other and we have a level of respect for each other. You know what I mean? So, so even though it was a weird experience, I think it kind of shaped who I am now as a man, right? So, but after that, I would say though, I couldn't wait to come back to Boston. I think that growing up in Boston, if you know Boston, it's very segregated. The West Indians live where the West Indians live. African Americans live and where African Americans live. The Irish live where the Irish live, and the Italians are stuck in Revere. North End, Revere, all those places. You know what I mean? So, and you could literally pinpoint exactly where the Vietnamese live and where the Jews live, everywhere.
Cape Verde,
like it's really that segregated. Yeah. So because of that level of segregation, I always viewed Boston as like mainly black and West Indian. Mm-hmm. I never realized how white it actually was. So living in Florida, we lived in a fairly upper middle class neighborhood, even though we weren't that necessarily. Mm-hmm. And it was predominantly white, right? So coming back to Boston meant to me that I was coming back into like a black culture. You see how crazy that is? Yeah. Like no one would ever associate Boston with black culture, but because of where I was stuck, like just I wouldn't use the word stuck, but because of where I grew up and the people I was surrounded by was predominantly black, I couldn't wait to get back to that. So when we moved back, I was happy. You know what I mean? I was like, well, this was a dope experience. I felt like I was in the Wonder Years episode. You know what I mean? I'd never experienced any, like riding my bike to school. I never went to sleep. I would hear, you know, birds chirping, no gunshots. It was beautiful.
All day, you're not hearing it.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. All I heard was crickets all night. And it was like literally crickets and frogs. So it was like a dope experience for someone that grew up leaving. So listen, we left Brooklyn because our house got broken into and someone stole my goldfish tank. And then the person that took my goldfish tank, right? The whole goldfish, it's everything, right? No, but listen to this. The dude that took it, the next day was helping my father find out who took it, and it was in his crib.
No way.
It was in his apartment, right? So it was just one of those places where my mother was just like, yo, I don't want to raise any kid out on Eastern Parkway. It's not happening. This is we gotta leave. You know what I mean? And they ultimately thought that Mattapan.
Maybe they didn't know.
They didn't know. They didn't know. You know what I mean? Coming from BK, I think you look at any other places, there's no way that any place is just as bad as this. And we're talking back in the 80s, right? So it's crazy, the crack era, you know what I mean? So to them, it was just like, yo, anywhere is better than this. But then you moving into Mattapan in the crack era, you know what I mean? So it wasn't any better. So we hopped around trying to escape that, and you know, kudos to my parents for kind of seeing that and didn't not wanting us to fall into any traps. But it wasn't a sustainable thing financially, right? So yeah, we found our way back.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
So what is your relationship with your parents like?
It's strange because for a while, like I said, when we lived in Florida, like, you know, my pops was still up north, my mom was still up north, then she came down for a little bit and then moved back up. I've always had a relationship with them where at times they couldn't really be parents with me. It was more like I feel like, for example, there are couples that get into situations financially where they don't discuss that around their kids. So their kids actually think they're good. Like they don't ever know what's going on. I was in those conversations with my parents at a very young age, right? Because they just kind of viewed me as being able to handle information.
Yeah, you were responsible,
I guess.
Or wise.
Something, you know what I mean? But whatever it was, so it was a strange relationship where it was like I didn't have a traditional, you know, father, son, mom relationship with my parents, you know what I mean? And it trickled down into my siblings because I didn't have the typical sibling relationship with my siblings as well, where they kind of went to me as if I was their father or something like that. You know what I mean? So I kind of had a more parental role with them as well. Like they literally would come to me before they ever went to my parents for anything. and that, pretty much remains constant even into adulthood. But like, it was not a traditional relationship at all. You know what I mean? But yeah.
How did that, like, how does it or how did it impact you? Like, in positive or negative, like, because, we see, I could tell you stories too. Like,
yeah.
You look at the traditional families we watch in movies and, and then we see our life.
It's not the same, bro, right? So I was lucky enough, I guess, to have grown up in a 2-parent household, right? Mm-hmm. So I had my, I had my father, I had my mother, whatever. But I think the way that impacted me in terms of the relationship that I have with them is that I'm not a person that is easily emotionally connected to people as the forefront of anything, like in terms of relationships, right? So the relationship is usually like, like defined, right? So like, how are we friends? Like for you, for example, I met you with fantasy basketball, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, I met you that way. Now, if there's other ways our relationships build, so it's like, I look at it as blocks, right? Yeah. So it'll build like that, but it's not something that I would immediately put emotion to drive that, and that affects you with your partners, right? So with girlfriends or people that I've dated in the past, it was like that as well, like almost damn near transactional, where it was just like, all right, well, you offer this, that, and that, so I guess this could be something that I'm willing to entertain. Mm-hmm. But then the emotion could come afterwards. Yeah. And I think that's a result of the relationship that I had with my parents, where that's what it felt like. It was kind of like, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't driven by emotion. You know what I mean? So
it wasn't like
like I was never babied.
Yeah, the loving home and the nurturing. Like, I've been a man, you would say, right? Handling stuff since you was a kid. So.
Right. So
that's out.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but now, the way I engage with my children is the exact opposite of that. I make sure I don't do that. I try to do everything that my parents weren't readily capable of doing at the time, because they were trying to survive. You know what I mean? Like my mom, Dukes, she came to America from Haiti when she was like 15, 16, bro. She didn't know the language. By the time she was trying to get herself settled, like by the time she had moved here, she was immediately kicked out of the situation that brought her here, which was a family member that had brought her here, and she was sleeping on trains and stuff. No way. You know what I mean? So, and we're talking like 70s here, right? So, for a woman to have been in that situation, a brand new country, doesn't speak the language, she's in her teens, she's riding around in trains and stuff, and that's where she's sleeping, to, owning 3-4 homes in different states, you know what I mean? And building herself up and making sure that her children went to college and this and that. I don't think there was time to sit there and focus on, the emotional aspect of anything. It was just like, we need to survive. So I need to work all these extra shifts and things to make sure that things are being handled. Mm-hmm. So I understand that, but I don't need to do that with my kids, because I've been blessed enough to be in a position where I'm not chasing a dollar, thankfully. You know what I mean? So I have the time to provide that to them. You see what I'm saying?
100%.
So yeah.
And so when it comes to like influences,
right,
when you were young, or just as growing up, a young adult and everything, who are some of the influences that you have had,
right?
Or maybe before I get there, as far as your parents, like what things, positive and negative, did you take, to be who you are now? Like what things did you learn from them?
So it goes into the influences, right? Okay. Because those two were literally the person that I am is a combination of those two people. They were the major influences in my life, and it's not even on purpose that they were. It was like indirectly they were, right? So like, well, except for my dad. Like my dad was the type of person that intentionally would say things like, you know, this is how you have to dress in this type of situation. This is how you carry yourself. You like in terms of articulation, like you have to be able to articulate yourself. And he's like, this is a man that walked around with a thesaurus, you know what I mean, in his car. Like to this day, he has one in his glove box. You know what I mean? So he was very. We would have these Saturday dinners where we would sit down around the table, and he was literally teaching us how to eat, like elbows off the table, how to eat in public, not letting the fork clank around on your teeth, like things like that. You know what I mean? So I don't know how many kids in my neighborhood had that. Half of them, I said half, 90% of them didn't even have their pops around. You feel me?
100%.
So for that, I was extremely blessed to have that. You know what I mean? And that influenced how I carried myself through school, the job market. You know what I mean? Just in life in general. You know what I mean? You have to have a certain decorum or disposition when you're dealing with certain people, and being able to read the room, things like that. These are things that I learned from him that he actively tried to teach us. Yeah. With my mom, it was more indirect. She was the hustler, you know what I mean? So with her, I'm literally just watching her just make moves, like, you know, paying off homes on a CNA salary, you know what I mean? Making like $5-6 an hour, you know what I mean? Wow. And leveraging credit to buy other homes and do this and do that. And this was not something that she learned to do. She was just looking for a way. And she never sat down to teach me these things. I just watched her do it, and I picked it up, probably subconsciously, but I was always kind of aware of how she was always moving pieces around. And to this day, I find myself doing those same things. You know what I mean? And again, it wasn't something that she could have ever taught me, because I don't think she understood what she was doing. I feel like at times it was just like an epiphany, like, oh shoot, if I did this, I could get this, so let me do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And there was no second guessing.
Right, there was no second guessing. So like, oh, why don't I just try to pay off my house right now? You know what I mean? So everything with her in terms of her influences towards me were all indirect, and it was just me just observing her and how she moved and admiring that. Yeah. You know what I mean? So those two, absolutely. That I can't. Exactly who I am is a combination of those two.
Yeah. And who else? Do you have any others like that have influenced you as you've gotten older?
Right. So as I've gotten older, I mean, I would have to say my wife, bro, and here's why. We've been together for so long that decisions, all the major decisions that I've made in life and all the things that are important to me are influenced by conversations and plans that I have with her. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So there are aspects of my personality that could probably hinder me from achieving a lot of the things that I have to date. If she wasn't around to kind of be that nudge, or that, like, she's a Virgo, bro, so she's always like, you know, organized notes and all of that, whatever, and I'm a Libra, I'm more laid back, procrastinate, whatever. Great ideas. Not so good with the follow through, but excellent ideas, you know what I mean? But with her, it's more like, yo, you know what I mean? Like, did you take care of that yet? You know what I mean? So having that person around. Need that. Yeah. So having that person, you Libra?
No, I'm Cancer.
So having that type of person around, right, is helpful, bro. And of course, she's been an influence, because even down to my health, you know what I mean? So I'm healthier now than I was. I'm in my 30s, so I'm healthier now in my 30s than I was in my 20s because of her. You know what I mean? So just and her influencing how I eat and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I would definitely say it's her.
So what were some of the reasons, you decided to marry her specifically?
So I think it would have to go back to why we started officially like dating in the first place, right? So I remember so we knew each other for a while, but we've always, I think at the time that we met, I kind of understood what type of partner she could possibly be or potentially be. So I do what most young dudes do. It's like, I'm not really gonna mess with this one right now because I just want to have fun, bro. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, she's too sick.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, and
everybody, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, no.
I remember my mom or something. My mom said to me one day, men don't know the difference between one woman and another. I was like, no, that's a lie. Maybe you don't understand that men do, but men do.
We do.
Because no man is gonna walk up to Michelle Obama talking crazy.
No.
You know what I'm saying? And they're not walking up to Rihanna talking wild.
Not at all.
You know what I'm saying? They're going to come with a certain level of respect because there's a level of interest, but there's known. So there's a difference. Yes, I mean, that's extreme, right?
Right,
but
exactly. Yeah.
On the basic level, it's so valid. So like what you're saying, you knew from her just how she carried herself.
Right.
Okay, I need to have my joint together.
Right. Exactly.
I'm going to deal with her.
So, and it wasn't like one of those things like where it was kind of like, well, if I deal with her, there's nowhere else that this could potentially go. Like, I didn't see her as someone that I could just have a good time with. Maybe some other dudes may have perceived her that way. You know what I mean? Because what's a queen to you may be something else to somebody else. You know what I mean? So, but for me, I never kind of looked at her like that. So it was just like, I'm just trying to rock out, have a good time, whatever. So I remember it was on her birthday, and she, one of her peoples hit me up, was like, yo, it's her birthday, whatever. And I hadn't spoken to her in probably over a year. So I just pulled up anyways and ended up dropping her back off at the crib. And she was just like, yo, like, how come we never made this happen? And I was just like, yo, honestly, I'm in a position right now in my life where I don't have the resources or time
that's real
to be dealing with a shorty right now. You feel me? Like, I don't have anything to offer you. And she literally looked at me and was just like, well, why do I have to wait for you to have something to offer me? Like, why can't we just get it together? And I was just like,
can't argue with that one.
I have every shorty that I met up until that point, I feel like have always looked at me in terms of if they knew what I was getting into, whatever, it was more like, yo, what can you slide me? You know what I mean? Like how can you hook me up? Like, how can you further my agenda? So that was the first time I actually had a conversation with someone where they were interested in how can I build with you specifically. And so I'm telling this, young woman, like, I have nothing to offer you. I don't think you understand right now. Like, at the time I didn't have a job. I literally thought I was the second coming of someone from Paid in Full. If you know what I mean by that. You know what I mean? So I thought I was, Trap God 3000 or something. and I wasn't. You know what I mean? But it's, that's just like, roadblock and mentality of growing up in your environment, right? But I just was not in a good spot, and she just was like, yeah, I don't care. Like, I know what you are. You know what I mean? So you can't argue with someone like that. You can try, but you just can't. So she was convincing, you know what I mean? So I was like, all right, cool. I mean, if you want to have a lot of these broke dates, feel free, man. You know what I mean? I warned you. Don't come to me in 3-4 months from now and not say, but we've built a dope life together. You see what I'm saying? So where we've come from together up until now, like that, like from that point on dating, I saw all the things we were able to kind of accomplish together. How was that not the person I was going to marry? Why would I break off something like that just to restart or have someone else benefit from where I've gotten to now? You know what I mean? So it's like, nah, I built all of this with this person. Nah, I'm going to marry you. You know what I mean? Like, what? Why would I wouldn't even want someone else to benefit like that. Remember, I don't lead with emotions, so that next person.
Yeah, it was all logic,
You know what I mean? That next person would have to break through a lot of walls and stuff that she had already broken through. You know what I mean? Easy.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
And you guys have a few kids now.
Three.
Yeah,
2 boys, and the last one's a girl. So
what are some of the things that you've learned, from your influences in your life, or from your parents, that you try to instill in them? Or together, you know what I mean?
Right. So I think my parents were huge within like the church community, religion and stuff like that, right? I think because of things that I've either observed or understood about religion growing up, that has kind of turned me off from it, still has not turned me off enough to not instill some of the things that I learned from my parents in regards to that, right? So, constantly teaching my kids about the importance of the Bible and praying and stuff like that. So these are all active things that we do. You see what I'm saying? So, but again, going back to what I was saying, there's a lot of things that I observed growing up that I decided, okay, this is how you guys did things. I'm going to do it the opposite way. You know what I mean? So with my kids, I do try to lead with love. You know what I mean? So I hug them when I can. You know what I mean? I participate in, like my dad, for example, he was one of those traditional dads where it's like, my job is to just work, put food on the table, and you know what I mean? Like, maybe crack a hiney and go sit down and just watch something.
Leave me alone.
Just leave me alone, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So basketball games, stuff like that. My Ma Dukes really was the one that maybe once in a while, if she had time, would participate in taking us to practices or going to watch or whatever. I could count on. I remember, I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
I was heading off to college and I was doing these little college tours, whatever. And there was this one recruitment tryout thingy where they just had a bunch of us upcoming college kids come in, and we just were playing in this tournament. It's almost like a recruitment tournament. It was weird. And my father was there by default, like he was there, whatever. So it was in Alabama. And I remember during the game, I caught a dunk, right? Catch the dunk, I come down, I'm running back up the court. And I just so happened to look up, like I think either I almost like after that, I was trying to look for where the ball was gonna land, whatever. And I look up, and this dude's mouth was on the floor. Mind you, at that point, I had been dunking since I was probably like 14.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now we're talking about like, I'm about to be a freshman in college, and this is the first time he's ever seen me catch a dunk. So I was confused, like, why does he look like that? You know what I mean? Like, and my mom has already seen it, so she was just whatever. It wasn't anything special, but this dude, literally his jaw was to the floor. So that goes to show you his level of involvement in that arena. You know what I mean? So for me, the opposite of that is I'm at every game, I'm at every practice. I actively train my kids after work when I can.
Yeah.
I spend hours with them, upon hours and days upon days, traveling, going everywhere with them. So I literally do the exact opposite of what I had with them. You see what I'm saying? So the negative has become positives. You know what I mean? And the positives have remained from whatever influences I got from my parents. Yeah. So
that's dope.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like what they talk about, like, I don't know, breaking generational things, like
curses, generational curses or whatever. Yeah.
Because it's important. And I think I've come to understand it just in my life, like that, our parents, like you said earlier, that survival.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we're not really in a state of survival right
No.
now. Like things are generally good for us
Absolutely.
for the most part. Opportunities are there. Yeah, you can say whether they're limited or not, but still, you know what I mean? They're not the same as in if you went back to Haiti,
no.
you know what I'm saying?
No.
Or Africa or anywhere,
No.
So we're in a good state. We just need to know that we can do it.
Exactly.
Right? It's just a belief in self.
Absolutely. That's all it is. It's literally a mental thing.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just so many, and it goes to like dating and like who you choose, like all of that is in our mind.
Right.
And for me, realizing in this state of my life that the decisions I've made for the last like 10 years were all because of the belief in the shortcomings in myself.
Right.
The anger and the pain that I carried, from my mother and father.
Right.
And so the people I hung with was leading me down the path, be just like my father. You know what I mean? But I'm like, I'm not going to be like my father. But because of my anger, I'm walking down the same path.
Same path, right.
And because of the anger with my mom, I'm choosing women just like her.
Right.
And I'm like, why am I so frustrated with them?
Right.
Because
you're choosing,
yeah. And then until I come to a level of peace,
right.
And then I can now attract the peace.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that you really want in life.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing with, different households, different families have that different level of like things that need to be broken.
Mm-hmm.
So then the next generation behind don't have to deal with certain things,
Yeah, like my parents the level of trauma they've dealt with just coming from a place like Haiti, and coming to a country where racism was still at its peak, right? Like, not that it's decreased anymore since, but we do have some liberties now that we did not necessarily have back in the late 60s, 70s, right, when they were migrating here. So when you look at that, plus the fact that they have to deal with so racism from white folks, and then prejudice from folks that look like them, who didn't appreciate them taking the lower wage jobs and not participating in voting the way they probably should for the greater good of black people, right? Because that's the thing with when immigrants come here, they don't their political views don't necessarily align with what African Americans have probably been fighting for decades, right? And so there's anger and there's trauma now attributed to them from all angles. You know what I mean? And just the culture shock within itself. So how do they not pass that on to their kids and how they discipline them? How is their discipline ever going to be with love leading? It's always going to be with anger. You know what I mean? Because they're like, yo, I'm in this country. I don't understand what any of these people are saying. Number one. Number two, you're wilding out. I'm just angry. You know what I mean? So it's and if you can ever get to the point of understanding that, you have to be able to change things when you have kids. So I know a big topic is like the idea of like spanking your kids, beating your kids, right? Like, so if you think about that, like, it's understandable where that anger comes from. So if I as an adult can understand the psychological aspects of how my parents disciplined, why then, if I don't share those same traumas, would I attribute that trauma to my child now? Why would I need to? I understand the language of the country of which I was born in. You know what I mean? I have opportunities that these folks didn't have.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good. So then why would I do anything that it was a result of any action that was a result of their trauma to it just doesn't make sense. Yeah. You know what I mean? So,
and that comes from someone that's like a logical thinker, right?
Exactly.
and you don't react in emotion.
Right.
I mean, for the most part,
Right.
But a lot of people, it's the other way around. It's emotion that leads, and that messes with our decisions.
But I think that you have to be self-aware. I think that once we as a community kind of do the work in understanding, like having some type of like just introspection, like just understanding who you are, like I know everyone's big on like that self-care and, you know, going to therapy and stuff like that. Sometimes you really just gotta sit with yourself and really think about not all the things that have happened to you or how your parents may have treated you, but what is their story? And if you understand their story, or anybody that's ever done anything negative to you, if you can understand their story, then you can understand why you don't need to pass that on. Yeah. Because maybe you're not sharing the same issues that they had. You know what I mean? So it's literally, you just have to be self-aware.
Yeah, and I think being self-aware leads to then that like understanding of others, and like giving people that grace that they, because of their issue, whatever that they were raised, that I'm not gonna, like the forgiveness, right? Like I can let that go from you. Like I'm not gonna hold that against you. I might need to know how I need to move with you.
Oh, absolutely.
That needs to adjust. Yeah, that adjusts. But I'm not gonna, like, and if I look at my parents, like, once I understand, like, man, like this is what you guys dealt with. Right. My father coming into this country, you know, as a teenager, and his mom not leaving him and coming here first, you know, and then his grandmother raising him. Wow. And then to come here, and then it's the same. His mom's not really taking care of him. Right. And his father's never really been around. So imagine a kid, and then you're coming to this country trying to learn English, dark skin, you know what I mean, in Boston. Oof. You know, so, and then, man. You know, and you look at my mom, you know, and the life that she might, you know, lived, and my grandfather was abusive. Right. You know, drinking, and military, real hard. Yeah. So
that's like no love there. Drinking in the military is like no love there.
I realized like that why is my first reaction hard? Yeah. You know what I mean? Because that's the environment I was in. It was a hard reaction. My stepfather raised me. It was hard. He wasn't really, there was no love with him. Right. The way he loved you was being hard. Like, gotta teach you how to be a man.
Yeah. And is it?
I know.
Is that really what a man is?
No. So like, it's once understanding these things about our parents and the people that come around us, before us, whatever, then it's like, okay, I can now understand you and treat you, you know, a little bit differently than how I might have, or letting go the anger and the resentment that I might have had, you know, towards parents or people or friends, whoever, because we don't know their story if we never really try to find out, right?
Right, yeah.
And so I guess that leads to what you're saying, like, what is a man? Like, what is manhood? Thank you for listening to the Follow Then Lead podcast. You can reach us on social media at...
The email is followthenleadinc@gmail.com. Instagram, Follow Then Lead Podcast. And our Twitter is Follow Then Lead P. Until next time.
Take it easy.
Word.